Today, a commission of local Ottawa residents announced they will hold their first public hearings on the trucker protests that took place in the capital. That will happen later this month. The convoy blockades are long gone. Reminders of the protests still stir up high emotions among many Canadians. So, a new poll commissioned by CTV and Power Play, working with Nik Nanos and Nanos Research, shows that these emotions are mostly negative. In this exclusive Nanos Research poll for Power Play, look at this. 7 out of 10 respondents say they have a negative impression of a politician who openly supported the trucker protest that laid siege to Ottawa's downtown core last winter. About 21% of respondents say they have a more positive or a somewhat more positive impression. Reminder, several politicians did meet with the truckers, including interim leader Candice Bergen. She's not running for re-election in the next election, whenever that comes. Former Conservative leader Andrew Scheer, seen here with members of the Conservative Saskatchewan caucus. They met openly with the convoy supporters. The Conservative leadership frontrunner Pierre Poilievre, an Ottawa area MP, of course, he was handing out coffee to some of the protesters. So is support for the trucker convoy political poison? What does it mean for not just the Conservative leadership race and potentially the frontrunner Pierre Poilievre, but the chances in the next possible election? Nik Nanos is standing by, the founder and chief data scientist for Nanos Research. Good to have you back, my friend. Okay, let's talk about this. Just break down the numbers. What does this tell you, and how should people read into this?
Well, you know, the interesting thing about this, Evan, is that these negative impressions cut across gender. They cut across every age group. They cut across every region. The fact of the matter is with 7 out of every 10 Canadians having a negative view, why don't we even say a toxic view of politicians that openly support the truckers' protest, this is not a growth strategy for anyone or any party that wants to try to win a majority, I would say even a minority government.
Okay, so you're saying that the, quote, toxic view, the negative view of the protest, it crosses regions, genders, age groups? Like, how does it break down?
Yeah, well, think of it this way. We always think of the prairies as ground zero for protests in the truckers' convoy. Only 27% of individuals that live in the prairies believe that the truckers' protest would have a positive impact on a politician that they would be looking at.
Okay, I guess the question, though, Nick, is what defines trucker support of the trucker protest? Because you saw someone like Pierre Poilievre said, I've always said anyone who does illegal activities I don't support, and yet I support many Canadians who exercise their right to protest. So is there a nuance here or not?
I don't think there's a nuance because the numbers are so strong. I think the fact of the matter is that for many Canadians, they saw it as disruptive. You know, even though many sympathized with what I'll say the frustration of the pandemic and the frustration with the lockdowns, I think the fact of the matter is where the truckers' protest ended, and now it's ended up in court with criminal charges. Right. It's basically bad news. Now, could it help someone win leadership? Yes, absolutely. Could it be a disruptive and important force in the election? Absolutely. But is it a winning strategy? Absolutely not.
So what do you mean? So it may help someone win this Saturday's election. The ballots are in today, but you're saying it could be a liability in a federal election.
It could be a liability. And you know, the other thing is in the last federal election, we also saw that those protests disrupted the Liberal campaign, right? Even though they were from a minority of Canadians. Right. So what I'm saying is this is a new wild card, but it's not a wild card that can win an election.
It's interesting because remember, it was Jean Charest who said that this would, quote, support for this disqualifies you. That obviously didn't happen, and it's widely expected that Mr. Poilievre will win. But that his mood may have been towards the federal election, not the leadership, but it may cost him.
Absolutely, and I think this is where for Poilievre he has to reconcile the law and order agenda of the Conservatives where they're strong with what I'll say some of these freedom protests.
Okay, how much of a liability? If you look at, let's say, Justin Trudeau, who's had all sorts of scandals, whether the Aga Khan, I mean, I don't want to go through them, the blackface issue, there's those, if you pulled on those, Canadians say, I don't support that, I don't support that, I don't support the We Charity thing, but he wins elections. Is the trucker protest maybe a liability in and of itself, but may not have an overall negative?
Well, I think it's an overall negative because it will hinder anyone who tries to win or build a winning coalition. So the question is, whoever wins the Conservative leadership, their first step has to be not just winning the leadership, but how can they try to form a government and get the greatest number of seats in the House of Commons? And this is a fundamental obstacle to that.
But it's a powerful constituency, though, isn't it, within that party?
Yeah, and not just within the party, but in Canada. So can they put their money where their mouth is? Absolutely. Will they go out and protest the Liberals? Absolutely. Will they be motivated for those politicians? Sure. But it's the silent majority that dictates the outcome of election, not the squeaky wheels.
And a danger for any Conservative politician who wins is to turn on that group if they'd actually been courting them, right?
Yep.
Nik Nanos, what a fascinating survey.